Hello, welcome to I hope you're well. So this is a reaction, I suppose, to yesterday's game, Newcastle at home at London Stadium. As you can tell by my voice, it's a bit worse for wear. I was going to do a video last night when I got back after 7 o'clock, but yeah, I totally lost my voice. So just woke up this morning, not too well, on the road to recovery, let's put it that way. Let's just talk about the game. I won't make this a long video, but fantastic. Look, before the game, I was kind of on tenterhooks, really, where I was probably not able to make much conversation with anybody because I was just waiting for the team sheet to be announced. And I was kind of 50-50. Wasn't too sure, where I was, the establishment that was the purveyor of fine alcoholic beverages. Many people, and myself included, was very, very happy, very excited that Potts and Fernandez and Paqueta were, starting in the middle, especially Potts, right? But what I wasn't happy about, what I was concerned about, was Todibo and Kilman in defence. Everywhere else, I thought it was a good lineup. So, but with that, I was quite happy with the way we were going to set up. And as the game started, and as usual, first couple of minutes, I thought, oh, we were doing quite well. Then Bowen hits the bar, or the post, what it was. From where I was, it looked as if it was the bar, but it was the post, really. And I thought, whoa, we were just starting to get into it. We were just starting to, and the crowd was, there as well. There was a lot of singing. There was a lot, I think I lost my voice in the first couple of minutes, really. But then they went up 30 seconds later. They went up and scored, and we thought, oh, flip it now, here we go. And you could just feel it. It feel as if it was like, oh, this is deja vu. This is Groundhog Day all over again, And we sort of lost our heads a little bit for about 5 minutes. They were on top, but then we picked ourselves up. And I think I was urging them on, just like every other fan was urging them on, saying, look, heads up, keep on going. And they did, and they got themselves back into it. Paqueta, then the Wan-Bissaka cross, which is an own goal, and it was great. And they were showing us a lot more fight, and we were showing them a lot more encouragement as well. One was feeding the other, definitely. But I'll tell you what, there is this thing, right? And it's called, well, it's my finger, okay? But in music, there's this little device that goes like this, tick, 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 tick. It's called a metronome, right? And it just keeps the timing, and you can adjust it according to what kind of music you want, right? Well, this is what we had in the centre, in midfield, and we had our metronome, right? Potts, he was just basically in there, and Fernandez, they're both doing this. They were just keeping everything going. Potts with his tackles and his play, Fernandez with his energy as well, and Paqueta as well, just had a great game, because he had Potts and Fernandez there behind him, allowing him to have that movement and have that time on the ball. But he also brought it himself in terms of the tenacity. I said in a couple of weeks ago, talking about Souček and Irving, in terms of how a poor performance and an inability in the centre of the park, how that radiates out, and that radiated negativity out. Well, in this case, it radiated out positivity. So everybody else was feeding on it. We, the fans, were feeding off it, but the rest of the players were feeding off it. So going into half time, I thought we had a lot more chances. We were playing through the lines. We were, getting tackles in, getting the crowd in as well. It was good. It was good times, good vibes. I was saying beforehand, before the game, it would be a miracle based upon what we'd seen before that we get any kind of performance. But we did. Miracles do come true, right? We were actually putting on a performance. But what I will say is this: as good as West Ham were, Newcastle were as poor. And what, for the life of me, I cannot understand, is that as one kind of works off each other. Was it that we were good, that Newcastle were bad, or they were bad and that allowed us to be good as well? I would tend to favour that because of Potts and Fernandes, especially in midfield. That enabled us to be a lot better. I think we surprised them at how much better than they thought we were going to be. So that kind of flattened them out a little bit. But what I will say for them is that as a Newcastle team, that West Ham's major kink in the armour is our defence. Be able to defend corners, defend crosses, and defend against height. So you got some tall players in your defence, and you got Walter Marder up there. And it appeared to me, as a neutral, as an objective Newcastle observer, that you just weren't exploiting the failings of West Ham. That's what it was. You just weren't exploiting it at all. In fact, I don't think you even tested it and challenged it. In terms of crosses, in terms of trying to get as many corners as you can, trying to get free kicks and trying to get crosses into players with height to put us under pressure. Look, they scored their goal from Murphy, decent goal, turned Juve inside out a little bit. Kilman was away from it, but Todibo was off it in terms of trying to cover behind Juve. Good goal, right? It was a good goal. But from that point on, we kind of clawed our way back and we got back into it. It was a really good defensive showing at the end of it. After everything I was saying in terms of our inability to defend, we defended really well. Nuno takes a lot of credit in terms of the way he's set up. After everything that I've been saying about Nuno, we should sack him, get rid of him. I've always said that's based upon what he's given us, right? What he's shown us in terms of his decisions. But he made the right decisions in the starting lineup. I was concerned with Todibo and Kilman, but he swapped them around. They gave a great performance. At times, yes, still a bit sketchy, especially first half. But overall, they did what they had to do, and they did it really, really well. So Nuno's got to take a lot of credit, and I give him the credit. And I also hold my hand up, because I said I would do this, right? I'd hold my hand up if I feel that I was a bit too premature in me being very critical of Nuno, right? Nuno Nessi. And I still stand by why I was critical, and I still stand by why I'd say he's not the right manager for us. But given that performance, it obviously turns everything around, right? You prove that you can do it. You prove that you can listen to us as fans and maybe see for your own eyes that what you had in midfield just wasn't right. So you needed to change it up. You needed to go with Potts and Fernandes, especially. Those are the two players that were changed, and it changed for everything. It changed it for all of us. I thought Juve had, he was definitely trying to get up there, and I think there's lots of times, especially in the first half, there's a bit of interchange between Somerville and Juve, and I thought they could have opened up Juve a lot more to get down the byline and get crosses in. We were screaming out for it where we were in the corner flag. Billy Bonds 130. Billy Bonds lower. We've got to represent, and we did after the game as well. But it was a great performance from all the players. They really stuck at it, really fought. There's a lot of tenacity, a lot of intensity. They and it would have been so easy to drop their heads and capitulate after Newcastle scored, but we didn't. We just got better and better. We fought harder, and they had their moments, of course they did. It's not to say that they didn't, especially in the second half. So they had a 5-10 minute spell which they could have come at us, but they didn't. We stood tall. Areola, for me, is definitely number one keeper, because how can you argue against a keeper that shows it week in, week out? And even when we've been playing atrociously, I don't think many of us will put a lot of blame at our overall performance on Areola. I think he's been doing all right. I think in this game, he did fantastically, pulled off a couple of great saves. And I was there, even when it was a you know, a really soft header went straight into his arms, I was saying, yeah, that's another worldie Areola, and that's another worldie Alphonse. I was screaming and chatting. I'm sure people around me must have thought, what's this idiot on about? But, you know, I was just loving it. I was hyped up. You know, I think when, you know, we were in the second half, when I thought we were going to go for a third, you know, that's the beauty of winning, right? The beauty of winning, that it gets grown men really excited. And you just, you know, I've got to apologise, whoever was stood next to me to the right, you know, I was grabbing him, and I was, yeah, when we scored that last, you know, the Souček goal, I was grabbing him, and I just go, yeah, you know, getting completely carried away. I was going to the little fella to my left, grabbing him and going, yeah, go on. You know, so that's what it does, you know, it just grabs you, you just get so excited, you know, when you start hugging and screaming with complete strangers, as it were, you know. But it was great. It was a great afternoon to watch West Ham come back and be a team, right? And we played a team, and it's all down to that metronome, Potts and Fernandes, both of them. Because I just don't think you can label, you know, put it all on Potts as being fantastic, because he was, and you can't put it just on Fernandes. It was both of them. They were both, you know, brilliant. And everybody was brilliant. But it's because it radiated from midfield. The composure from both of them, fantastic. The vision, the passing, the tackles. But Potts, he plays like a veteran. He does. He plays like a veteran. He's fantastic. So, you know, if Nuno takes anything from this game, he's got to realise that he made 2 starting lineups, he repeated the same mistake, and he should learn from that, in that you can't just hope that something that's not working, that it will work, when it failed miserably, right? So here, something that worked fantastically well, we've got to repeat it, but at the same time, we've just got to hope that it will work again, but just don't always, as I'm telling myself, and I'm probably telling everybody else, you know, I don't think we can always expect this to work, this trio in midfield, certainly Potts and Fernandes, but it appears to be our best option, and it definitely worked yesterday. It definitely worked against an under par Newcastle. You've got to hope that it works against Burnley. And if it continues, it will just give us the momentum to go on and on and on. You know, I could go on all day about that game. It was fantastic. Look, before the game, you know, I had my pre-match rituals. I'm sure you did, wherever you were, whatever you were doing, if you were at the game or not, right? I went to, you know, I had a bite to eat. I walked around through Bow into Hackney Wick. Stopped off at a couple of libation centres there. Ended up with sitting in amongst a whole load of Newcastle fans. I don't know how that happened. So swift off, went out there. Everybody was sweet. And realised it was an away pub. Never used to be, but there we go. Then again, I hadn't been there in about 2 or 3 years, maybe longer than that. Then went over to by the stadium, by the whatever they call it these days, the podium bar used to be called, I think. And I was almost a bit confused by the bouncer, because he said you need a ticket, and I said you need a ticket to get in, because they were checking everybody, and I thought it was going to be like one of these event tickets. And I was just like, don't need a ticket to get in here, pal. What's the matter with you? He said, no, sorry, you need a ticket. I was going, what you want about I need a ticket? And I said, what do you mean, match day tickets? And he said, yeah. I said, oh, there you go, man. I thought you meant a ticket just to get into the pub, because it was a home pub, right? It's a West Ham pub. That was all right. I had a quick swift off. I didn't know anybody in there. I was expecting to see some people there, you see, because I wasn't sure whether we're going to be meeting up there or somewhere else. Anyway, then I went to the other place, Carpenter's, had a couple of drinks there, chatting to a few people. It was great, really nice. And I think the positivity was starting to build from that point, really. Got to the ground, walking around. There seemed to be a lot of positivity in the ether, as it were, but I still have my reservations. But, the game started and it just got better and better. It was just fantastic. And then, people who were coming up to me before and after the game saying hello, that's great. Great to speak to people and meet people as well. But I think everybody was just on a high, right? So I suppose the other thing I'm going to touch on now is the sit-in protest afterwards. So I don't know how it appeared on TV during the game, but I think there was lots of gaps in the crowd again, from where I could see, and it's hard to look across, where you're stood, because it always looks full, right? But if you look at the other stands, you see lots of holes. And I was watching Match of the Day last night, and there seemed to be lots of holes there again. But as the final whistle went, lots of people were staying behind. There were lots and lots of people. But it's hard to compare that first 5 minutes after the whistle, final whistle, because we're on a high. So we've just won the game. We're putting a great performance, right? So people are going to stick around anyway. So it's hard to tell whether those people that will stick around 5-10 minutes would have just stuck around anyway, or were actually sticking around for the protest, right? And because I thought that there's going to be a lot more migration to the Bobby Moore lower, I said beforehand I wasn't going to do that. I was going to stay where I was seated or stood. And it appeared to me that lots of people had the same opinion. In fact, I think virtually everybody had the same idea. Just stay where you are and do what you got to do. So I was screaming and shouting, holding up my flag and all sorts of stuff and singing along. The stadium was still blaring out loads of music, and I assume that was a tactic on their part to drown us out a little bit. I tried to do a live, cast from it as well. If you watch my live show from it, you might have got a perception error on there, because unfortunately I didn't realise that the image was mirrored. So it's the wrong way round. So if you can imagine, everything that was on there should have been reversed. And I'll know for next time. But I was there for, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes afterwards. I don't know, something like that. And, we're one of the last to leave. But after those first 5-10 minutes, it was noticeable how many people had gone. Now, in all fairness, I would say a good 80% of the crowd that was there, 70% of the crowd left anyway. So 20-30% of the crowd that were there sort of stayed, only in the lower section, right? It probably wasn't even that much. After about 5 or 10 minutes, that dramatically reduced again. So by the half an hour mark, 40-minute mark, if you were there, there was a guy behind me, he said hello to me as well. It was really good. Thank you. It was really nice to speak to you briefly. I know I was losing my voice and I was obviously protesting. But it was noticeable. And so if you're watching this and you were there, maybe you can confirm what I was seeing as well. In front of me, down behind, in front, there's a couple of fellas holding up the flags. One of them you probably recognise. Sometimes he's with crossed hammers, and I don't know him. Went up to him afterwards and quickly shook his hand. Not to introduce myself, more like say, well, at least you're protesting like I'm protesting. That's what in my mind, that's what I was going to shake his hand. And also to say, good job for organising this, or being partly organising it. But there was something going on between him and the stewards. There was something there, having some kind of discussion. I don't know if it was the stewards were trying to tell them to stop. I don't know. They were telling them to go home. I actually don't know. So it'll be interesting to hear from him, the guy Nick Tucker. I think his name is Nick Tucker from Cross Hammers. Okay, I say I don't know him, so but anybody else around, what that conversation was. My general feeling is that the stewards never approached us, certainly never approached me. I was holding up the flag during the game as well. Anytime there was a corner, at the start of the game, at the start of the second half, I was holding up my flag. But as soon as I thought the cameras would be anywhere near the corner flag, I was holding it up. So, but the stewards never did anything in terms of trying to tell us to sit down or hide a flag, try and usher us away. They never did anything at all. So from that point of view, it was, it was okay. But I say there was something going on down there. I don't know what it was. But overall, the impression that I had was, for those of us who stayed, I think we did ourselves proud. I think those of us who stayed for 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was, 45 minutes, whatever it was, I think we stayed and we did ourselves proud and we represented. But I'm not sure how many eyes were on us, let's put it that way. I'm not sure how much media attention was on us. So I'm not sure how successful a protest element it was. And that's my honest truth. My impression is that we were doing our best, but I'm not sure. Look, my voice is going, right? But I'm not sure how successful it was. It just didn't appear to be something. Now, I suppose also, because we won, we had a great day, maybe the media were never going to focus on that anyway. We're never going to, highlight us staying behind. I'm sure we'll find out a lot more in the next few days. I'm sure there'll be a lot more for people to dig into and to chat about and to discuss and all that sort of stuff. It just didn't appear to be that successful from an outsider's looking in perspective, I would imagine. But from an insider's point of view, being there and, shouting and singing and putting our points across and holding up the flags and protests, it was all good natured. It was all peaceful protests and everything like that. And where we were with Billy Bonds lower, 130, the corner flag, we were one of the last ones to go. I mean, even Bobby Moore lower, it really thinned out. By the time we went, there's hardly anybody there either. In all fairness, I think most people had reached half an hour point, 45-minute point, and thought, right, go on, let's go. We've had enough now. I think I heard a couple of people saying, look, this is pointless now because nobody's even watching us. I got to say, whoever said that behind me or to the right of me, I don't disagree. I was kind of feeling it as well, But look, we did our part. We did all we could. And hopefully people will watch that. It never ceases to amaze me, though, the kind of reaction that some people might give you online to what you're trying to do, what you're trying to say. I'll put out a couple of shorts and, okay, there's just one or two comments, and people's, silly comments like people say, well, you should be supporting your team. You should be going to watch the team. Where do you think I am, pal? Where do you think I am? I'm right there. I'm in the stadium. I'm outside the stadium. I'm there. I'm supporting. But, but that's why I never pay attention to comments, especially crappy comments, trolly comments. It's just like, who cares, right? But good comments, always welcome, of course. But it's great to I just love meeting new people. So if I'm speaking into the pub or just having a general chit chat, probably about an hour and a half before the game, I'm usually on tenterhooks. So I'm just waiting for the team to be announced. So the next game against Burnley, I probably won't be on tenterhooks because I'll be confident that Nuno is going to start the same team again, right? He's got to, right? It would be madness not to start the same team again. Wilson, I thought, did really well first half. So what I will say is this, and we were kind of talking amongst ourselves in the crowd, 60 minutes it takes off Wilson, there or thereabouts, right? Brings on Souček, and we thought, oh no, what's he going to do? No, this is too defensive. What's he doing? Where's he going to put Souček? And he put him up top. And we thought, oh God, he's not. Yeah, he's putting him up top, but he's not really going to put him up top. He's just going to bolster up the midfield. And it kind of surprised us, right? That it was working. We were doing all right. But then he put on Igor. He put on Kyle Walker-Peters as well. And we thought he's obviously going for defensive, shutting up shop here. At that point, Igor and Kyle Walker-Peters, I was on board with it. I thought, okay, it's fair enough. 60 minutes, bringing on Souček, I wasn't sure what the reasoning was. Now, I also missed, at the time, when I was voicing my confusion at Souček coming in, I totally missed that Marshall wasn't on the bench. I knew Füllkrug wasn't there. So if you'd know why Marshall wasn't on the bench, let us know, because I don't know. I don't know if he was injured. I don't know if he picked up. I don't know if he was ill. I actually don't know. So, but you would imagine, surely, if Marshall was on the bench, you would have put Marshall on, right, to come on for Wilson. If Füllkrug was on the bench, you would imagine that he'd put Füllkrug up there. There we go. Anyway, listen, I could hop on for hours and hours and hours. I think Nuno did a great job in realising his mistakes and fixing them. I think the players all stood up. Fantastic, every single one of them. And even when they were faltering a little bit, they were being covered and supported by the other players as well. So it didn't look as bad. I just hope that we can repeat this, especially against better teams. We can build on. We can get against Burnley next weekend. We could do it against them. And we can have a great display again. And a great performance, and if we win there, we're on our way, because we've got a real tough run into Christmas, to January, real tough run in, and so we need all the help we can get. Look, the voice is going again. Right, listen, all I can say is fantastic effort yesterday, fantastic day all around for me, brilliant start to finish, places I went, people I spoke to, the game, the excitement, fantastic. But all I can say is yesterday was fantastic, brilliant. And all I can say is on to the next video. Catch you again. Bye now. Up the hammers.